I was woken by the sound of the house phone ringing. I slowly turned my head on my pillow so I could see my bedside clock. It was 6:27 a.m. A few seconds later, my mom rushed into the study to answer the phone. The study was next to my bedroom, so I could hear every word that she said. Hello? Caroline, it's 6:30. What on earth is the matter? What's happened? Slow down. Becky has what? The measles? Oh no, that's terrible. That's really unfortunate. And today of all days. Poor thing. Yes, I know. And it only came up last night? Poor thing. Well, I hope she's okay. She'll be over the worst in a day or two, I'm sure. It's such a shame she won't be able to. What? He's about 5'7". Why do you ask? He still has long hair, of course. You know he likes it that way. Caroline, what are you asking? Oh, I see. Well, I'm not sure he would be too enthusiastic about it. Are you sure there's no one else who could? Yes, I guess you're right if you're sure. I can ask, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. You know what boys are like with this kind of thing. Yes, I know it's your big day, but it's a lot to ask of someone. And at such short notice. Okay, Caroline, calm down. It'll be fine, I promise. I will ask him now. I'm sure he will understand and will want to help you out. Okay, I understand. I'll ask him now. Yes, okay. 8 a.m.? Okay. We'll be there. Okay, goodbye, Caroline. Mom put the phone down. Another minute or so passed before she emerged from the study. She came immediately to my bedroom, knocked on my door, and let herself in. Andy? Are you awake? I am now. What was all that about? I sat up in my bed, but remained mostly covered by the duvet. Mom sat down on the chair beside my bed. That was Caroline on the phone. She was in a bit of a panic. Well, I thought something must be up. If she felt she had to call us this early, is everything okay? I heard something about measles. Yes. Becky has the measles. She'd been feeling unwell all week apparently, but they came on last night, even worse this morning. So she won't be able to come to the wedding today. Did you know she was going to be one of Caroline's bridesmaids? Oh no, poor Becky. She'll be all right though? Oh yes, she'll be fine, I'm sure. She'll be in bed for a few days, but people recover fairly quickly from measles nowadays. Good. So Aunt Caroline is one bridesmaid down then? Yes. Well, hopefully she doesn't need to be. That's what I came in to talk to you about. How do you mean? She asked if you would take Becky's place. She wants you to be her bridesmaid. Me? I laughed, presuming it to be a strange joke. Yes. With so little time to make arrangements, she thought you would be the best fit to take over from Becky. Best fit? Seriously? How am I the best fit? Well, you and Becky are the same age and around the same height. Plus with your hair, Caroline thinks. Thinks what? She thinks you'll make a really good-looking girl. Mom, I can't believe you're asking me to do this. I know it's a bit of a strange request, but it's an emergency. The wedding is in a few hours. She had no one else she could ask. Why can't she just have one bridesmaid less? Caroline was quite insistent that she will have 4 bridesmaids. You know she's superstitious about numbers and symmetry. There has to be 12 people in her wedding party, her and David, 4 bridesmaids, 4 groomsmen and 2 flower girls. Everything was planned long ago, including who stands where during the ceremony, and in the photos. So how will I know what to do? I will only have a few hours. Everyone knows the situation, so they will help you through the day. You essentially just need to be there to support Caroline, and to smile when you have your photo taken. So what do you say? Will you do it? Will you be Caroline's bridesmaid? I paused, but only for a second before answering. In my head I wanted to say no, but for some reason my lips said the opposite. I even managed to force a smile. Okay, I'll do it. Brilliant. Mom jumped up from her chair. Okay, the wedding ceremony starts at 1 p.m., but you need to be at Caroline's house for 8 a.m., so you don't have long. I can give you a lift over there. 8 a.m.? Why so early? Because there is so much to do. You'll need your hair and makeup doing, and the dresses, oh my god, just wait until you see the bridesmaid dresses, they're incredible. I see. I had suddenly begun to feel quite nervous. You'll be fine, I promise. And Caroline will be so grateful, you have saved her big day. Now jump in the shower, have a good wash. And then have some breakfast, it's going to be a long day. Be ready to leave at 7:45, okay? She didn't wait for my reply and immediately left the room. I pulled the duvet up over my head, but only for a few seconds as I knew I didn't have time to waste. I jumped out of bed and took a shower. I didn't eat much of my breakfast as I wasn't very hungry. I put this down to a mixture of being nervous about what lay ahead for me, and also the fact I wasn't used to being awake this early on a Saturday anyway. I was ready on time, and by 7:45 a.m. we were in the car and making the short journey across town to Aunt Caroline's house. Mom dropped me at the door but didn't come in with my. She kissed me, wished me good luck and then set off back home so she could begin her own preparations for the day. The next time I would see her would be at the church. Someone must have seen me pull up because even before I had found the chance to knock, the door swung open and I was greeted excitedly by one of the other bridesmaids. We had met once before, but she reintroduced herself anyway. Her name was Penny and she was Aunt Caroline's best friend. Penny was in her early 30s and had a movie star body and beautiful light bouncy brunette hair. She was wearing a short silk pink robe which didn't leave much to the imagination. When she turned around I saw it had the word bridesmaid stitched across her back in black italics. Welcome to the madhouse, she chuckled as she led me inside. The house was a hive of activity. The front room was in the process of being transformed into a temporary hair salon, with 3 hairdressers in matching black t-shirts moving furniture and propping up mirrors, with a 4th shouting instructions to them. Penny took me to the back room where the other bridesmaids were sat at the table drinking coffee. All were wearing matching pink robes. Andy, squealed my cousin Laura. She was nearly 4 years older than me, although we had always got on well, without being overly close. Hi, Andy. Gemma, my younger cousin by 2 years and also Laura's sister, was a little less enthusiastic at this stage. I hadn't seen her for a few months, and while I had been expecting to see her today, I never imagined it would be in these circumstances. Then the kitchen door swung open and Aunt Caroline walked in, followed by her mother who was already dressed in her mother of the bride outfit, a striking royal blue floral shift dress, presumably with an impressive hat to come later. Caroline already had her hair in rollers and was wearing a white silk robe. She had the word bride stitched into the back, naturally. Hi, Andy. Thanks for doing this. She smiled. Her attention was then immediately taken by something else and she disappeared into the makeshift salon. "Andy, just wait until you see the dresses." "Oh my God!" Laura giggled excitedly. I began to blush a little. I wondered what on earth I had got myself into. The next 4 hours were a bit of a blur. Before I knew it, I was sat in the living room salon, wearing a black bridesmaid robe with my hair in pins and rollers. I was a brunette, slightly darker than Penny, with naturally straight hair, just below my shoulders. As my style was extremely similar to Becky's, it was decided that the plans already made for her wedding day hair would be simply transferred onto me. I had grown it long a year ago, partly in an act of teenage rebellion and partly as I wanted to be different to my friends. I rarely paid much attention to it though. More often than not I would tie it back in a loose ponytail, but I had the feeling that today that would just not do. I sat quietly in the chair alongside the others as every few minutes one of the hairdressers would come and check on my hair, replace a pin or reset a roller. While this was going on, Carrie, who was one of the half a dozen beauticians who had recently appeared at the house, knelt down beside me as she gave me first a manicure and then a pedicure, painting all my nails the same light shade of pink. Then, after spending 10 minutes plucking and reshaping my eyebrows, her final contribution was to notice that my ears were not pierced, and so, with my permission, she quickly remedied the issue and pierced both my ears at the lobe with a piercing gun she conveniently had with her in her beauty bag. Next, with my hair still in pins and rollers, but with a reassurance from the hairdresser that I was on course, Sarah the makeup artist came over and began to apply my makeup. I won't pretend to know exactly what she was doing as I had had no previous experience of makeup, but it didn't take very long for my appearance to be totally transformed. She covered up any blemishes I had and gave me a soft, feminine glow I had never before imagined possible. She used pastel colors for my eyeshadow, in keeping with the color themes of the wedding which were to follow, and somehow managed to extend the appearance of my lashes with a simple coat of mascara. To finish off, she insisted on using a particular shade of dark pink lipstick, which she then passed to me, with instruction of how and when to reapply throughout the day. By this stage I was already almost unrecognizable from the boy who had woken up in bed that morning, but I knew there was plenty more to come before we were ready to leave for the church. "How you doing, Andy?" Gemma took time out from her own routine to check up on me. "Fine," I replied hesitantly. "You look fab." Gemma smiled encouragingly. Penny then returned to the room and made the announcement Laura and Gemma in particular had been waiting for. "Okay, ladies, it's time for our dresses. Follow me." I stood up and followed the 3 other bridesmaids upstairs to the guest bedroom where our dresses were laid out ready for us. There were screams, gasps and giggles from the others as we all entered the bedroom. I remained quiet as I attempted to take it all in. 2 of the dresses were laid out on the bed, the other 2 were hanging on the outside of wardrobe doors. They were stunning, matching pastel pink ball gowns with large skirts and plenty of sparkle across the body. There were various other boxes and bags strewn around the room. I had no idea what were in them. "Okay, this is how we're going to do this," Penny began. Being both chief bridesmaid and the oldest of the 4 of us, it was natural that she would take command. "Caroline and her mum are nearly ready in the bedroom next door, and as there isn't much room in here, I suggest we do this one at a time. So if you wait outside, I will call you in when it's your turn and help you into your dress. I'll have the hairdresser come up to take out your rollers and put the finishing touches to your hair, then when you're ready you can go in and see Caroline and wait with her. Once we are all ready and together, we'll have the photographer come up and take a few pictures and then we'll be nearly ready to leave. Sound like a plan?" We all nodded. "Laura, you stay, you can go first. Then it's Gemma, then Andy, then I'll go last." Gemma and I left the room and waited patiently on a couple of chairs outside the door. A minute later, the leader of the hairdressing team passed us and went into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. "This is so exciting, don't you think?" Gemma tried to calm my nerves, but I didn't have much to say. "Yeah," I muttered. "This is my first time as bridesmaid." "Mine too." I finally managed to smile. After around 15 minutes, Laura emerged from the bedroom to a gasp from Gemma. She looked amazing. The dress was stunning and her long blonde hair had been curled and styled. She looked like a princess. "Okay, Gemma, your turn." Gemma jumped up and ran into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. Laura didn't say anything to me. Instead, she smiled and gave me a cheeky wink. She then turned and headed to Aunt Caroline's bedroom, giving me a full display of her gown in the process. A few seconds later, I heard a shriek of excitement as Caroline and Laura first set eyes on each other in their dresses. I was left alone in my chair, waiting for my turn. It seemed like an eternity before the door opened and Gemma carefully stepped outside, although in reality she was probably no longer than Laura had been. She looked equally as beautiful as her older sister, a miniature version almost, although her blonde hair was not quite as long. This was a new experience for her, and she was clearly loving every second of it. "What do you think?" She giggled as she executed a mini twirl for my benefit. "You look amazing, Gem." I meant it, she really did. "Andy, are you there?" Penny shouted from the bedroom. "You better go." Gemma smiled. "Good luck." Gemma tiptoed past me and headed for Aunt Caroline's room while I went in to see Penny. I just about heard the second shriek of excitement from Aunt Caroline and the two girls before the bedroom door closed behind me. I was now alone with Penny and the hairdresser. There was no time for small talk as Penny sat me down on the corner of the bed. There were now just two beautiful dresses hanging up. One of them was mine. I wasn't quite ready for the dress yet though. First, Penny handed me a plastic bag which contained a pair of plain white cotton briefs and a strapless bra. Turning away to give me a little modesty, she instructed me to put them both on as quick as I could. The briefs were easy, of course, but I struggled with the bra, so Penny helped me with the fastening. To my surprise, she then filled each cup with a small silicone breast, giving me just the slightest bit of bust, no more or less than a girl my age would have had. This was now officially the strangest experience of my life, but there was no time to dwell on that or even get used to the fact that I now had breasts, as Penny then went over to where the dress was hanging and carefully brought it back over to me. I stayed quiet and did as I was told. I knew we didn't have long until we had to leave, and I didn't want to be the reason why we were all late to the church. First, I stepped into a beautiful white petticoat. This on its own was quite large and had not been something I was expecting to wear in addition to the dress. Then, as I stood still with my arms raised above my head, Penny, with the help of the hairdresser, slowly and carefully lowered the gown over me. Whilst the hairdresser then dropped to her knees to smooth out the layers of the skirt, Penny slowly fastened the back of the dress, first with several ribbons to pull in the body, then with a series of pearl buttons and silver clasps. I took a deep breath. I was in. I knew there was no way I'd be able to take it off without someone carrying out the reverse procedure, which was quite a strange feeling. I was essentially trapped. The dress was a perfect fit, which was quite amazing as it had been made specifically for Becky, not me. It really was exquisite and ultra-feminine, not only due to the beautiful pastel pink color but also the design of the large layered floaty skirt and petticoat, and the sparkly bodice. It was essentially a quinceañera dress, the kind of dress a young girl would fantasize about one day being able to wear. Again, I had no time to dwell on what I was doing, as I was instructed by Penny to lift each foot, one at a time, and slip my feet into a pair of silver strappy 2-inch heels. I was glad they weren't any higher as I had no time at all to learn to walk in them. The hairdresser finally took out my rollers and frantically brushed until she was satisfied with my look, finishing it off with a generous amount of hairspray. My hair had never looked so good. It was long and flowing with a bounce and a curl I had never experienced before. Then, finally, Penny added some sparkly drop earrings to my newly pierced ears and a small silver pendant around my neck. I was allowed only a brief look in the long mirror which had been set up on the wall in front of me before being shown the door so Penny could herself get ready. I was speechless at how pretty they had made me look. I stood in the hallway on my own for about a minute as I tried to calm myself down. I knew what would happen next. I would walk into Aunt Caroline's room and join her, Laura and Gemma, probably to a chorus of shrieks and screams. I had no idea what time it was, but I knew once Penny was ready, it would be almost time to leave. I was nervous, but I knew everyone was nervous to some degree. I tried to remind myself that this wasn't all about me. I was merely playing a small part in Aunt Caroline and David's big day. I could wait no longer, so I took a deep breath and slowly opened Aunt Caroline's bedroom door, stepping tentatively inside. There was a hushed silence and then a gasp as the four women, Caroline, her mother, Laura and Gemma, locked eyes on me for the first time. Then came the squeal. I closed the door behind me and walked slowly across the room to them. My heels were actually quite easy to walk in. It was the large skirt I was finding the biggest challenge at this stage. Caroline was wearing her wedding dress and was sat on a stool by her dressing table. The others were stood close to her. "Oh my God, Andy!" Laura squealed. "You look beautiful, Andy." Caroline added. "Thank you. We all do." I replied, trying to divert some of the attention away from me. "How do you feel?" Gemma asked. "I feel incredible. I feel like a princess." I giggled. There was no point being anything other than honest. Momentarily at least, all my nerves had gone. Caroline then stood up to reveal the full splendor of her dress. If I was a princess, then she was undoubtedly my queen. I had never seen such a beautiful dress, perfect white, a skirt that went on forever, so soft and delicate. She was wearing a stunning tiara with matching diamond drop earrings and sparkly bracelet. You could hear the gorgeous swish at the slightest of movement of the dress, more so than any of our bridesmaids' dresses. It was quite a sight. "Aunt Caroline, you look incredible." I was in awe. She leant over and gave me a hug, the best she could with us both wearing such large dresses. A minute later the door opened and Penny came in, wearing her pink dress. She had got herself ready much quicker than the rest of us, it seemed. There was one final shriek. I even found myself joining in this time, and we were all together and ready for the wedding. Well, almost. Aunt Caroline had one more surprise for us. She gave us each a small silk pouch. The color of the pouch matched our dresses and each was personalized with our names stitched onto the side. They had ribbons attached so we could hold it on our wrist and carry a few necessities during the day, such as the lipstick we had all been given by our beauticians earlier. Considering I had only been chosen as bridesmaid a few hours earlier, I was surprised to see my pouch had Andy stitched into it, but I didn't have time to raise the question. We were then all handed small bouquets to carry. Aunt Caroline had a larger version, as you would expect. The bedroom door then flung open one more time and two young girls ran in excitedly. Daisy and Lily were Penny's two daughters and were to be Aunt Caroline's flower girls. They had been waiting patiently downstairs with a relative and were clearly having the time of their lives. They were aged 6 and 4 and were dressed in miniature white versions of our dresses. They looked adorable. The photographer followed them in and immediately began taking pictures, mostly with instruction of where to stand or sit, although some were more off the cuff and designed to capture the nervous energy of this period before the ceremony. It was now approaching 12:40 and it was time to leave. The church was only a short drive away, but even so I got the impression Aunt Caroline, wanting to be the traditional bride, was planning on being fashionably late. Each of us were super careful on the stairs in our heels and big dresses, but we all made it downstairs safely and soon enough we're standing outside together at front of the house. There was a light breeze which was very pleasant and swished our dresses slightly as we moved. A small crowd of Aunt Caroline's neighbors had gathered across the road, each of them shouting good luck messages and telling us how beautiful we all looked. 3 matching white vintage cars then pulled up, Rolls Royces I think. This was to be how we were getting to the church. The first car was for Aunt Caroline and her father, the second was for Aunt Caroline's mother, Penny and the 2 flower girls, the third car was for Laura, Gemma and me. It was quite a challenge squeezing into the car in our huge dresses, and in particular as we were all wearing the extra layers of petticoat too, but somehow we managed it and soon enough, buried in a sea of tulle and hidden under layers of silky fabric, we were on our way. It then dawned on me that I had no idea what to do when we got there. No one had told me how to walk down the aisle or where to stand or anything. I had no idea how to be a bridesmaid. We had a practice of it all last week. Follow us, we'll show you what to do, Gemma told me with a reassuring smile. And just remember, you're a girl now. You're going to have the best day ever, trust me. You'll be fine, Andy, don't worry. Laura leaned over and gave me a comforting hug. Suddenly my nerves were gone, well, almost. We got to the church just after 1 p.m. and gathered together outside the front door. As the flower girls made their entrance, scattering flowers down the aisle from a basket, we did one final check of our dresses and stood in formation at the top of the aisle. Aunt Caroline and her father would go first, then Penny and me, and then Laura and Gemma. After a brief pause, the music started and we all took a collective deep breath as we began to make our way down the aisle to the front of the church. There was a hushed silence and then gasps from both sides of the aisle as everyone took sight of Aunt Caroline for the first time. I saw my mum but didn't make eye contact. I didn't want anything to distract me at this important moment. After what seemed like an age, we finally got to the front. Aunt Caroline was reunited with her husband-to-be, David, and Laura showed me where to stand for the first part of the ceremony. My heart was beating fast, but as the vicar began to speak and the ceremony got underway, I began to settle down. Laura and Gemma were fantastic. They prompted me whenever I needed to do anything. There were times when I needed to stand, and others we all got to sit down. I would have been lost without them. Aunt Caroline looked stunning in her dress, even more so in the grand setting of the church. David looked very handsome in his suit too, and as planned he had his best man and 3 other groomsmen alongside him, all looking equally as handsome. The youngest of the 4 looked to be around my age, and also slightly nervous. I wondered if he had been chosen to do this at the last minute too. "Who's the one on the end?" I whispered to Laura and subtly pointed to the young groomsman. "That's Freddie, David's nephew," she replied. "Good-looking guy, don't you think?" I nodded and tried not to laugh out loud, but I ended up instead with an uncontrollable grin. It was at this point exactly that Freddie looked over and made eye contact with me. He smiled back. The ceremony went on for a long time, but it was a beautiful service. The rings were exchanged and Aunt Caroline and David were pronounced man and wife, sealing their love for each other with a kiss. We all made our way back up the aisle, a little less formally than when we walked down it, and after a brief stop to congratulate each other on a perfect order of service, we then congregated on the grass outside the church for the official photographs. The photographer knew exactly what he wanted and had no problem shouting his orders to us. He took dozens of pictures in every conceivable combination of bride, groom, bridesmaids, groomsmen, and flower girls. "Tits and teeth, he kept shouting at us. What does he mean by that? I asked Laura, slightly puzzled. He means stand up straight and smile. Laura giggled. My favorite pictures were the ones taken of just the women, Aunt Caroline and her bridesmaids, particularly the one where the photographer made us all sit down on the grass, having us spread our huge dresses out around us. It was such a joy to be a part of. There was also a photo taken of the bridesmaids and the groomsmen side by side. This moment was all too brief, although as my sudden shyness meant I missed an opportunity to introduce myself to Freddie. Photographs now done, we all made our way back to the cars where we were driven to the reception, which was being held at a posh hotel across town. We were all much more relaxed in the car this time. It seemed like the hard part had been completed. When we got to the reception, we would be able to let our hair down and have some fun. At the hotel, there was a huge round of applause when the bride and groom entered the room hand in hand. There was plenty of fuss when we entered too. My mom immediately came over, hugged me, told me how amazing I looked, and how well I was doing. Didn't I tell you the dresses were incredible? You did, yes, Mum. And they are. I gave her another brief hug before I was led away to take my place at the top table. A light meal was served, but I wasn't hungry enough to eat much of it. I was also quite terrified of spilling something on my dress, but thankfully I managed to avoid that particular embarrassment. After the dinner came the speeches. First, David's best man succeeded in his attempt to make everyone laugh. Then David stood up and made his new wife cry by telling her how much he loved her. Aunt Caroline then stood up for her own unplanned speech, first dedicating her love once again to David, and then, to everyone's surprise, she turned to me. And finally, I'd just like to say thank you, from the bottom of my heart, to Andy. You won't all be aware of this, but I only asked Andy to be my bridesmaid this morning. Sadly, my original bridesmaid Becky couldn't be with us here today, but I'm sure you all agree Andy has been the most perfect stand-in for her. You look so beautiful, Andy, thank you. And with that, she raised a glass, and everyone in the room did too. To Andy. I couldn't help but blush at the sudden and most unexpected admiration, and I was fully aware that all the eyes in the room were on me. But it was quite a wonderful moment to be a part of, and I loved the fact that Aunt Caroline had thanked me in such a loving way. As everyone finished their drinks, several people came over to say hello, and to tell me what a brilliant bridesmaid and beautiful young woman I was. I had no idea how many people knew I was really a boy, but it was never mentioned once. Next came Aunt Caroline and David's first dance, which was incredibly romantic. Watching her glide beautifully across the floor in her gorgeous white dress in the arms of her loved one gave me and everyone else goosebumps. They then invited everyone else onto the dance floor and the party really started. I danced with Laura and Gemma, which I'm sure it was quite a sight for everyone else, watching us twirl and dip and jump around excitedly in our dresses. I was having so much fun. Then suddenly the music stopped and there was an excitement around the room. Caroline was about to throw the bouquet. Laura grabbed my arm and dragged me to the middle of the floor, where all of the other women, my mom included, had already gathered. Ready? 3, 2, 1, Caroline tossed her bouquet over her shoulder, high up into the air. It seemed to take an age to fall, but when it did, to my and everyone else's amazement, it landed straight into my hands. I had caught the bouquet. There of course was screaming and squealing from everyone around me, and I was proudly informed that due to the tradition of the bouquet toss, I would be the next woman to be married. I laughed. We'll see. I replied. It had been the most perfect day, but the best moment was perhaps still to come. As the night was beginning to wind down, I was invited to the dance floor one final time. But this time it wasn't by Laura, it was by Freddie. May I? He took my hand and escorted me to a quiet corner of the floor. We started to dance. I saw you catch the bouquet. It was a good catch. Thank you. I replied shyly. I'm Freddie. The boy smiled at me. I already knew his name, but he didn't know that. I'm Andy, I replied, with a bit more confidence this time. Andy short for Andrea? Either he was being incredibly polite or he genuinely had no idea I was really a boy. I was more than happy you go along with it. Yes, Andrea, that's it. We danced and chatted and he made me giggle on more than one occasion. Then the music changed and a slower song came on. Without warning, Freddie put his arm around my waist and pulled me closer to him. Without realizing, I put my hand on his shoulder. A moment later, I began to sway slowly with him. I had never been so close to someone in this way before, but the way he held me, and the way my beautiful dress moved and sparkled in the light of the disco, it felt like the most perfect moment. As the song began to come to an end, I rested my head on his other shoulder for a few seconds, but when I lifted it up I realized we were no longer in a quiet corner of the dance floor, we were right in the middle of it. I also spotted my mom sat in the corner, watching us with a beaming smile from ear to ear. I caught her gaze and smiled back. Laura and Gemma were there too, watching us dance. But I didn't care. I was more than happy for the whole world to be watching this amazing moment. The music changed one more time and Freddie and I kept dancing. I love this song, he announced. He had both arms around me now and I had mine around him. I looked up into his beautiful dark blue eyes and I knew what was about to happen. He leaned in and planted the softest, most delicate kiss onto my bright pink lips, followed by a much stronger and much longer second kiss. My heart skipped a beat and a tingle raced down my spine. I knew people were watching, but I didn't care. We smiled at each other and began to sway to the music once again. I heard the lyrics to the song which was playing and I couldn't think of anything more appropriate. It was the theme to the movie Dirty Dancing. I've had the time of my life. I certainly had. The music finished and suddenly Freddie let go of me and disappeared, leaving me alone in the middle of the dance floor. I looked for my mum but I couldn't see her. Nor could I see Laura or Gemma. The lights came up to signal the end of the disco and everyone began to disperse from the room. Andy! I heard a shout but couldn't see who was calling me. Andy! Freddie? I looked around frantically but still couldn't see him. Andy! Freddie? Andy! I now recognized the voice. It wasn't Freddie, it was my mum's voice. Mum? Andy! Mum, where are you? Andy! Wake up! I woke up. Andy, it's 10:15. You need to get up. Mom was standing beside my bed. I slowly turned my head so I could see my bedside clock. It was indeed 10:15 a.m. Huh? What's going on? You've slept in. The wedding starts in less than 3 hours. We need to leave by 12 to give us enough time to get to the church. Wedding? Andy, stop playing dumb with me. It's Caroline's wedding day today. Now please get up and have a shower and some breakfast. How's Becky? I sat up in bed, trying to take stock of everything. Becky? She's fine, why? Does she have the measles? The measles? Of course not. Why would you say such a thing? Becky is fine. She is almost certainly very busy right now getting ready to be a bridesmaid. Now I won't ask you again, Will you please get up and have a shower? Okay. I threw back the covers and slowly stepped out of my bed. Thank you. Mom turned to head for the door. Your suit is hanging up in the guest bedroom. Okay. I wiped my eyes, still trying to wake up. By the way, who is Freddie? You were calling his name just then. Eh? Oh, no one. I was just having a dream. Just having a dream. That's all it was, a dream. The most incredible dream. I jumped out of bed and took a shower.